Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. University of Kentucky. We just talked Jackson Robinson with BYU. We're going to get back to him momentarily. But Kentucky's in an interesting spot, okay? So Kentucky's in an interesting spot, and I'll tell you why. It is because they had certainly a very interesting weekend. They lost a key recruit. 3 guys withdrew from the draft as I'm recording. They're waiting on a 4th one. But the interesting question is, what are they going to do with those last 2 scholarships? Because Mark Pope and his staff, I believe it was actually Cody Feger, his assistant coach, who said in an interview, like, oh, we plan on using all 13 scholarships. And so for Kentucky, it's certainly not scramble mode. I think they have a plan, a backup plan, and a backup plan to the backup plan. But it was an interesting weekend. Want to talk about that and what I think the final moves of this roster are. They should be coming in the next few weeks, but who really knows at this point, all right? So first off, the good news and the bad of the weekend. The bad news, let's start. What do they say? Start with the bad news first. So let's start with the bad news. Kentucky missed on Chaz Lanier. And to me, I don't know. It's not the end of the world. Chaz Lanier, of course, 6'4" guard from Nashville, played last year at North Florida, averaged just under 20 points per game, shot 44% from 3. And over the last couple weeks, his recruitment really came down to Tennessee and Kentucky. Ironically, BYU, with that NIL money, was in the mix to a degree. But I said on this show, even BYU, I think, felt like they were in a distant third. And so on Friday, right before the holiday, he chooses Tennessee. Now, I know Kentucky fans are going to say, oh, it doesn't matter. We didn't want him. No, listen, very good player. But I also don't think it's the end of the world for a couple reasons. One, I never really felt great that you were getting him. I always thought that he was Tennessee's to lose. It certainly trended that way. And I think he's a very good player. But I don't think that, let me put it this way. As I've said previously, I think he's a guy that even in the SEC can get you 20 or 22 or 24 on any given night. I'm not sold he's a guy that's going to get you 18 or 20 on every given night. I think it's going to be more hit or miss. He really only had 1 year of super high-level basketball at North Florida. Now he's going to be taking 2-3 steps up. And I think he'll be really good at Tennessee. I really do. I just don't know that he was like the huge X factor, whatever. So Chaz Lanier's off the board, but I thought Monday and Tuesday were a really good day for Kentucky for a simple reason. The dudes that you already had committed essentially reaffirmed their commitments because Kentucky had 4 players that were testing the NBA draft waters that by technicality were not withdrawn from the draft and in theory could have gone pro. And 3 of them on Tuesday all announced they were coming back. We're waiting on the 4th one, but the 3 were Lamont Butler, the guard from San Diego State, Amari Williams, the center from Drexel, and Andrew Carr, who averaged 14 points per game at Wake Forest this year. And so to me, you can sit there and say it's a negative about Chaz Lanier, but the positive is you didn't have anything weird happen at the NBA draft deadline, assuming Kobe Brea comes back. And so to me, as I've said consistently, I think the core, regardless of what happens with scholarships 12 and 13, is a really good freaking core for the 2024-2025 season. Listen, I've said it a million times. I am not here to criticize other media members and the decisions they make and the schools that they rank and whatever. But I don't understand how you can't look at this current Kentucky roster, independent of the other players who could or could not commit, and say that that's not a top 25 team. Just think about what Kentucky has. What they have right now. They have 3 players who averaged double figures in power conference play last year. Otega Owe at Oklahoma, Kirk Kriisa at West Virginia, and Andrew Carr, 14 points per game, 13.9, 13.7, something like that at Wake Forest, okay? So 3 guys who averaged double figures. You have Kobe Brea, who was statistically the best 3-point shooter in college basketball last year for guys who had enough attempts to qualify in the NCAA stats. Kobe Brea shot 49.8% from 3 on 200-plus attempts. So you have 3 guys that average double figures in the Power 5, the best 3-point shooter. And then the best defensive guard in the portal, Lamont Butler, Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year, and Amari Williams, the best low post defender, who averaged or who was the 3-time Conference Defensive Player of the Year. So just talk that out. What am I missing? 3 guys who averaged double figures at the power conference level. The best on-ball defender in the portal. The best center defender in the portal. The best three-point shooter in the portal. What am I missing? How is that not a top 25 team? And I look at rosters all day, every day. It's not a criticism, but that is. And it's like if, I don't know, I just feel like if John Calipari signed that exact same portal class, if whoever, John Shire, if, I don't know, I don't understand why people aren't deeming that to be a top 25 roster. But I bring it up to say, as we said, there are still 2 pieces to fill, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, we just mentioned Jackson Robinson when it comes to BYU. I still think if he comes back to college, Kentucky is the team to beat. I know I just said I think BYU has a chance. I didn't say BYU was the favorite. Big difference. In my opinion, Kentucky, listen, played for Mark Pope, comfortable with Mark Pope, knows that system. I think the big question is he coming back to college at all? I've said it consistently. I have not wavered on this. This is a guy played 4 years of college basketball. This is a guy that has played at 3 different schools. This is a guy that has his degree. And I know we think that every decision is about money and every decision is about where can I make the most money. That's not the case. A lot of guys just say, I want to go to this school because of this. NIL matters, but it's not the only thing. And you have a lot of guys too that say, I could return for another year of college basketball, but I'm ready to move on. Think about last year. Drew Timme had another year of eligibility, said, I don't want to play college basketball anymore. I got my Gonzaga degree. I've won 1 million games. I'm ready to move on. We've seen other guys at other schools make the same decision, and so we'll see what happens with Jackson Robinson going forward. If you don't get Jackson Robinson, I do think you got to push your chips in the middle on Wooga Poplar. Now, Wooga Poplar, we just mentioned him momentarily. He is the player. He averaged 13.5 points per game at Miami this year. Final Four experience. That's the other thing about, everybody's saying that, oh, this Kentucky team, they got so much tournament experience, whatever. They got so much tournament experience, they don't even know what to do with. They got whatever. But Wooga Poplar, I think you got to push your chips in the middle on that guy. 13.5 points per game. I like him a lot. And his recruitment's really interesting. One, now that Arkansas has missed on Igor Demin, Arkansas probably has a little money to mess around with as far as NIL is concerned. And I'll say this too. Villanova's in kind of a desperate spot. Wooga Poplar is from Philadelphia. Villanova's team stinks on paper. Now, they got good news on Tuesday. Eric Dixon, their best returning player, withdrew from the NBA draft. But they don't have, frankly, they don't have very good players. Let's just call a spade a spade. Most of their best players graduated. A couple hit the portal. They don't really have that many guys anymore. And so Villanova's kind of in desperation mode. Now, I don't know how much NIL money they have because they went heavy into NIL this year. It did not pay off. I think a lot of the boosters were just like, dude, we gave you a lot of money last year. You didn't make the most of it. And so because of it, we're not paying you again. But I think Villanova's in desperation mode. Oregon needs a couple guys. I think Arkansas is a factor. But yeah, if you're Kentucky, Mark Pope has said that he, plans on filling all 13 spots. And it's clear based on who they're pursuing that they still feel like they need more scoring. So those are the 2 guys realistically. Obviously, the backup plan to the backup plan would be Will Riley, 5-star in the class of 2025. I talked about it on Thursday's mailbag show. There was thoughts that he could potentially reclassify. I think we'll get that kind of information in the next month. He's planned visits to Kentucky and Alabama. Alabama's full. So if he plans on reclassifying, my guess is that it will be Kentucky. That will be the ultimate decision. But I think, and I said this on Thursday, then you're kind of in that John Calipari mode of like taking a reclassified kid, 18 years old, SEC. How ready will he be ready to play? How quickly? He'll be coming late. He'll be enrolling in late June, early July. So there's a lot of factors, but obviously if you are Kentucky, I think the focus has to be Jackson Robinson. Wooga Poplar, I at least feel pretty confident is definitely coming back to college. And Will Riley is the last one.